All right, let's do this. Last session of Accelerate. Here we go in the sales ops track. The final session of the day, we've got some wonderful customer speakers here to share some really great stories around rebates, and I'm going to let Imad do their introduction.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here today. I have with me JD Dillon and Tamara Lucero. So quickly introducing, Tamara's been is a customer of ours implementing Apttus solutions at Synaptics. She's director of Insight Sales at Synaptics and had a lot of experience in Insight Sales and customer experience. And we have with us JD Dillon. He's a West Point graduate, served in the Army, and served as a sales and marketing executive with Cypress Semiconductor, working along with Tamara, and has spoken professionally at many different forums professionally. So with that, I'll hand it over to JD to introduce and help us talk about optimizing strategies for rebates and accelerating revenue.
Very cool. So an intimate crowd. That's awesome. Look at that. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Congratulations at showing up at the very last session. That last session was great because I learned it as dog fooding. So apparently Apttus eats their own dog food. So that's very good. Today, Tamara and I, well, first of all, myself, right now I'm finishing up a project where I'm getting funding for a startup, not my own, somebody else, and trying to get millions of dollars for somebody else to spend. But I spent a number of years working with Tamara, and actually I have been at a company to help them convince them to use Apttus. So that's my experience with Apttus. And I'm looking forward to getting back into sales operations to actually do some real work, because right now I don't. And speaking of real work, Tamara worked with me for a while in service. And she is the most customer-oriented service person I know. And at the same time, she maintains strong process orientation. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to talk a little bit high level. Tamara's going to get down into the details as to how to make the solution work for you. So, first of all, let's start out with a little bit of a survey. I'm going to show 3 pictures, and everybody needs to vote at the end, okay? Which one best represents you? Are you a juggler riding on a tightrope on a unicycle? I myself, by the way, can ride a unicycle and juggle, never on a tightrope. Or are you trying to umpire with various different constituencies arguing? That's actually me umpiring, as an aside. I actually had to miss my son's Little League game tonight, which normally I umpire to be here with you guys. Now, third, are you trying to stick your finger in the dike, trying to stop all the different leaks? So you have to vote and raise your hand. And because the crowd is so small, I can actually see who doesn't vote. So which one of you is on the tightrope? You can only vote once. So we got 2 tightrope, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wow, group mentality. That's called splashing the pot if you know how to gamble. Whoop. Which one of you is an umpire? So we have 1 umpire. And which one of you is sticking your finger in the dike trying to stop Tamara? So a couple didn't vote, but whatever, that's all right. We're going to vote again at the end. So you're going to get a chance to listen a little bit, and hopefully that deluge of people waiting at the door will come in and join you, and we'll vote again at the end, see which one you are. So the goal here is to collect and organize all of the different rebates and discounts. We're going to go through, we showed 13 of them. We're not going to walk through each one. There's lots of ways to give money away out there. We're not going to walk through there. That's not the intent. To articulate. So my goal is that you can go back to your organization and sell them to do a couple of the things that we talk about today. That's articulating the strategy. Incorporate a mindset. So what is the right mindset? Well, yesterday the gentleman from Forrester spoke about most of the B2B customers are B2C consumers. I found that kind of interesting. So anybody that has trouble with the technology can go on Amazon and buy anything, and they know how to go to eBay. So if that's ever a barrier, B2B customers are B2C consumers. That's something to remember. And I thought that was a good point that he made. Because the mindset that I'm trying to get you to think about is no matter what, it's B to H. Yes, there's all kinds of neat displays out there that talk about machine learning. In the end, you're selling to a human. You're not selling to a company, you're selling to humans at the companies. And I think that's very important, and we get lost sometimes when we talk about real data-driven. Well, humans are emotion-driven. So Tamara is going to talk to you about how to take data and make your customer a hero. So the discounts are all over the place. Different organizations have different setups, but in my case, when I was at Cypress, pricing was centralized. At Tamara's organization, Apttus, it's not centralized. It's with business units. So these are a variety of different discounts. There's tons of ways to do it, bundle rebates, volume discounts, that the pricing org, we'll call it P, gives to customers. When I was at OCZ Storage Solutions, marketing handled all of the rebates. I have a handful of examples there. Channel incentives, interesting mail-in rebate. That's more of a B2C thing. We sold solid state drives, both enterprise and online. So you could go to Amazon and buy a solid state drive for your home computer. Well, it turns out, this is an interesting little tidbit, the percent rebate was roughly equivalent to the rate that people sent them in. So if you gave a 10% rebate, they'd send it in about 10% of the time. If you gave a 100% rebate, well, first of all, you're stupid. But second of all, they'd send it in about 100% of the time. So that was how I would gauge how much rebate we gave was how much they'd be cashing it in. It was a ballpark. That was for my planning purposes. Plus, it's easy to remember. Next, you have operations. VMI, vendor managed inventory. Well, if you're managing the inventory, you're handling the carrying cost of inventory. Shipping terms, who's paying? You or the customer? So as you can see now, and you go into finance, early pay discount. When I got to one of my companies, doesn't put them in a good light, so I'll keep it quiet, which one? We were giving out early payment discounts, but not checking to see if people were paying early. Obviously, that's foolish. So the point is, these different rebates and discounts are often organizationally all over the place. And the point is, in sales operations, you can organize it all. You can lead it all. How many people have ever heard of the book, How to Be a Star at Work? I just dated myself. There we go. Thank goodness. And she's at Apttus. She must be a star. How to Be a Star at Work. I studied it actually when I got my MBA, but I read it before then. It came out in 1999. It talks about leadership with a small L. What that means is you might not be in charge of anyone, but you can still lead. And my point here is you ought to lead the effort to gather all of these rebates together, gather all these discounts together. And once you do gather them all, you communicate to your customer in a business-to-human fashion. So what do I mean by that? You've got all these internal organizations within your company. And at the other end, you've got customer. Now, your customer may be a bunch of nameless, faceless people, and you need to find which person to highlight. Again, dating myself, Pink Floyd, The Wall. You got people marching along at a company, doing their jobs. Find that person to become a hero, highlight them, and then you, in sales ops, sit down with them and discuss with them all of the different rebates you're given. Your goal is to make them a hero. I will leave you with a final point before I turn it over to Tamara. So I was in the Army. In the Army, whenever we were getting a training, and there was a very important point, like if you don't do this, you'll get killed, they would stomp. So there's my stomp right there. If you give rebates, do it loudly. If you are raising price, Do it quietly. So I'm not advocating whether or not you give rebates or not. I'm telling you, when you sit down with your customer, if you've given the rebates, get credit for it. Now I have here a picture. If you look closely, that's me in the blue sport coat talking to Tamara in the white blouse. So it's time for me to turn it over to Tamara. She's going to get to some of the nuts and bolts.
Good afternoon, Sales Ops Optimizers. I'm Tamara Lucero, and I'm very excited to be here with you today to share with you why I think the sales operations organization is perfectly positioned to lead the cross-functional effort of executing a rebate strategy. Currently at Synaptics, we play in 3 distinct markets. 2 of those we're the market leader, that being our touch and display driver technology integrated into a single chip. We're number 1 in the market, as well as we're number 1 with our trackpad solutions for PCs and notebooks. Our 3rd market, we're number 2 behind fingerprint cards out of Sweden with our own fingerprint solutions. And we've been winning businesses at all major OEMs and customers for over 5 years using a rebate strategy. So let me go ahead and talk a little bit about why sales operations is perfectly positioned to execute the cross-functional leadership required for a rebate strategy at your company. You have a lot of different players in this puzzle. You have your salespeople, your hunters, constantly bringing in opportunities to the organization. Now, whether your pricing team is with, a little bit of error here. Now, if your pricing team is centralized or in the business units, it doesn't matter. They're going to require the most flexible quoting capabilities possible to win the business. If you determine that a rebate is going to be part of your response to win your customer's project, you're going to need to involve legal. Legal is going to want to make sure a contract's in place, that both sides execute on it in terms of what are the projects eligible, the milestones needed to achieve the rebate, and how long is the length of the rebate program going to be. And anytime you get involved with a rebate, finance and internal audit are going to be extremely concerned, because now you're booking orders at a gross price, and you're going to need to make sure your revenue recognition is at the net price. And internal audit's going to be very concerned as well, making sure that we're covered by contracts, as well as proper accruals for rebate payout and revenue recognition. So you can see a bunch of different organizations have a piece of the puzzle, but there's no overarching leadership in this rebate management transaction. So this is where sales operations can come in. So not only can they drive value for your corporation by executing your rebate strategy, but as a sales operations professional, sometimes I see our organization struggle to have career opportunities that go beyond the standard order entry, customer service duties. And here you can actually give a career opportunity to some of your star sales operations professionals by letting them run with the cross-functional leadership of a rebate program. So I want to talk to you a little bit about why we chose Apttus as our solution provider. As I mentioned previously, we've been using rebates for over 5 years, winning business, but we were lucky to choose Apttus as our solution provider about 10 months ago. So let me tell you how they've been able to help Synaptics. First, with the program setup and configuration. Really appreciate Apttus is native in the Salesforce environment, so we can actually bring our rebate program down a little bit granular. Before we had Apttus, we could look at an account, let's say IBM, and know we paid them $30 million in rebate, but we weren't sure which opportunities we paid those rebates on. Now we can build the price and the rebate at the opportunity level inside of Salesforce. Remember I mentioned once you determine a rebate strategy is going to be part of your solution, you're going to need to configure a contract. Apttus allows you to drop in all of your boilerplate, NDAs, rebate contracts, etc., into the tool and route it across organizations and multiple levels. either parallel or serial, however you'd like to configure it. Validation and classification. So Apttus allows us to validate, has the customer achieved the milestones needed for the rebate payout? We can look into the system now as opposed to an Excel spreadsheet managed by a human. And classification. Our pricing team really likes the Apttus solution because now they can look at the different types of rebates. I actually have over a dozen different types of rebates at Synaptics that we use. So pricing can see which ones have been the most successful in terms of improving margins or payout, whatever analytics you want to look at. Rebate accruals. Remember I mentioned finance and internal audit are going to be very stressed about making sure we accrue for the rebates appropriately and we capture and report revenue correctly at the net level. So here with Apttus, they're both satisfied because they can now go into a system to determine that we're tracking properly. And finally, performance tracking and rebate analytics. Remember what JD's been talking about. Part of winning at your customer is empowering that human to be successful within her organization as well. And so the Apttus solution allows us to easily pull performance and analytics tracking to either communicate internally or externally at your customer. Let's take a look at what an example might look like. So we've organized and gathered all of the discounts in the corporation. Perhaps you want to organize the data in a simple stacked bar chart. Here we're going to have the pricing of your product on the left and the discounts you give each quarter on the right. In typical fashion, one's always going to say, well, I only get a cost discount. So in our example here, the price change, we're giving a 2% discount quarter on quarter for the product. Your buyer's not going to be that impressed because she's going to go to her management and by Q4, they're going to say, you haven't done anything new for me lately. We always get 2%. Now, if you explain to her the additional discounts that she achieved by stacking the rebate, now it looks a little bit more impressive in terms of the overall discount she's getting from us as a supplier. And finally, if you want to add in the additional operation and finance discounts in terms of preferred ship terms, payment terms, VMI hub services, etc., that JD mentioned, well, now instead of having a discount bar that looks pretty flat and unimpressive, you can help your customer see the bigger picture of what you're giving as a total package in terms of various discounts to your customer. So again, you want to communicate the information that's already available in the Apttus solution so you can help your customer be a hero on her side. So again, there's JD and I. We're having a good meeting, communicating all of the discounts and information that we've been able to get, and helping your customer look like a hero at her organization. So folks, thank you for your time today. We're hoping, as a result of listening to JD and I, you now have some ideas about how to collect and organize the various discounts in your corporation. You can cross-functionally articulate a comprehensive rebate strategy and hopefully incorporate a business-to-human mindset when communicating all of the discounts to your customer.
So, beginning we voted, and more than not voted for the tightrope. Hopefully, after hearing this, you'll be able to tell that you can be the hero in the organization. So the goal is that sales operations, to me, is not a back office job. Your goal in sales operations is to lead with a small L, gather up all of the various rebates, communicate them effectively to your customer, and allow her to make inroads inside of her own company to get ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good job, guys. We actually have a couple minutes if you two want to stay on stage. If anyone's got any questions, we've got time to take a couple before we transition. So anyone have a question? All right.
I was just curious, how often do you sort of come up with more creative rebate strategy? How often do you change that strategy, and how does Apttus help with that?
Yeah, certainly at Synaptics, the creative ways to structure rebates have actually increased since the Apttus solution. So I would say the tool does allow for configuration. So again, we have over a dozen rebates, from price masking to bundled rebates to volume discounts to overall corporate company discounts. So it has actually evolved and gotten more creative and tricky over time. We actually even have one we call where you buy product A, you can get a discount on product B, or you buy product A and B, you can get a discount on product C. So I think the possibilities are endless in terms of how you want to structure it. And one of the most important points about a rebate, right, because your buyer is always going to say that they're going to, forecast the next 10 million units and they want the lowest price out the gate. I'd be more than happy to give you that lowest price if you achieve the 10 million, but let's start somewhere reasonable. And as you grow, your discounts become bigger. So that allows the supplier to keep more profit should your customer not be as successful as that big forecast they gave you.
And my experience was actually you needed to pull it back. Not to knock, any salespeople in the audience? Whew, good, I can bash them. My experience was sales gets very creative on the rebates. So you need to back it off. I did with OCZ, I did it monthly. We had rebate strategy meetings. That backed it away from a day-to-day tactical, because there'd be an endless nonstop parade of rebates. So I backed it off and said, okay, let's consider it next month. And that usually strained them out for the most part. And another point on it is, and I also found if you do business around the world, different rebates work different around the world. So my experience, for instance, mail-in rebates didn't work at all other than the US. In Asia, they were confused by them, so we didn't do them. So more regional is where I found the flexibility to be important. Sarah?
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question related to ASC 606. So there's a new revenue recognition rule, ASC 606. What impact do you think that will have on the rebate strategy?
Absolutely. So good question. I don't know the answer. I would just say our strategy is to always accrue at the most conservative level. So if you could earn a slide, you would always want to accrue at the most conservative level to make sure your company is always reporting conservatively and there's no surprises to revenue.
You know what's funny? Who went to the guru's presentation? So do you remember the 4 most powerful words in consultative selling? Do you remember? I don't know yet. So there's your answer. I don't know yet. Credit to the guru. Frankly, I just heard about it for the first time in his, and I'm going to look it up when I go home.
Any other questions?
Who will get the $50?
I tell you what, if somebody gives me a job offer, you get $100. How about that? Sarah, that question's for
Any
you.
other questions besides that question? All right. Well, JD and Tamara, thank you both very much. You guys offered some great insights this afternoon on some more strategic approaches to rebates. So thank you both very much.
Thank you.
And yes, but we're thank you guys.
Yay.
Very nicely done.
Oh my God.
Okay, so for everyone here who is not an Apttus employee, what is one of the biggest insights or kind of key takeaways from JD and Tamara's session that you would like to bravely share with the audience? Just for fun, no incentive here. the brave gentleman in the back.
So rebates, it's again the question he asked about what is the 606 implications on rebates, right? It's again, it's a loaded question. the revenue guidance, rules, and all are changing. So again, as you said, I don't know yet is the right way of executing it. But again, the reason I don't know it is right is every company does it different way. And again, based on the hardware, software, training, support, and the rebate also has to be treated the same way based on the SKU classification. So it varies. So that's a very good creative way of doing rebates, and adding this ASC 606 will be, again, follow the guidelines of the regular SKU configurations, and those are the things.
Great perspective. And since you were so brave to share that lesson learned, you are the lucky winner of our prize this afternoon. So congratulations. And thank you all for coming out. And again, JD and Tamara, thank you. It's been a great 2 days in Accelerate, or across Accelerate, but thanks to you who have popped in and out of the sales operations optimizers track. It's really been an exciting day or 2 days full of some really fun presentations from a diverse group of people, and hopefully you and everyone else who stopped by got some good new insights to take with them as you leave Accelerate and go back. Everybody goes back to their day job. So thank you very much. Thank you. And I'd also like to thank the team in the back. You guys are awesome. 2 long days.